Hi there. Welcome to the 25th Floor Juke Joint. I'm your host, Michael Litwin, and live tonight we have an interview with Mike from the East German punk rock band Namenlos, and also with me tonight is my co-worker James Q. He's here to help with any translation problems. Before we get to the show, I just want to thank people who have tuned into this and lent a helping hand to make this tonight's show the success it's going to be. I'd like to thank Rodney from Winnipeg Punks for advertising the show on his website and putting it out on the YouTube, and also to James and all his friends who were postering this show. And I especially would like to thank Mike from Namenlos for coming in today to talk about what it was like to be a punk rocker in East Berlin. Welcome, Mike, and welcome, James.
Hi.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike or James, move your mic a little closer in front of you, or move yourself. There you go. Okay. So we just heard Luft Alarm off of Namenlos' CD. It's a compilation CD, 1983 to 1989. And before that, what did we hear, Mike?
Well, I guess it was a track from that CD, but was not supposed to be on air.
Yeah, well, that's live radio. That's the way it happens.
It's about Teufel, devil.
Okay. And, of course, we're going to hear some more tracks from Namenlos' compilation CD as well. I'm going to be playing some tracks from bands, Canadian bands that Mike tells me he listened to. But let's get right into another track. This is off of what album, Mike?
That's Freiheit, Gleichheit, Brüderlichkeit, and it's called Fenster, pretty much like Windows.
Okay, and I also like to thank not only the people who here in Winnipeg have made this happen, but I'd also like to thank the listeners here in Winnipeg, and also I understand the people back in Germany who are going to be listening to this show. But let's get to the music. This is
Fenster.
Anyways, let's move on. Let's listen. Let's actually stop listening to some music here, and let's have a little chat with Mike from Namenlos. Welcome, Mike, to the show.
Hi.
So how about, Mike, you tell us a little bit about what it was like to be a punk rock artist and have a punk rock band in East Berlin back in the 1980s. What was it? Just go for it.
Okay, so, well, I tried to get this together here. Well, in the 80s, we had still that East German government, like we had that wall between West and East,
and it was a communist.
It was not communist. They were called communist, but they were not communist. They were called socialist. That they were not socialist. They were somewhere around there, but in a certain way that even some socialists and communists didn't like, you know. So it was pretty much a Soviet Union founded government what followed up what in the old days what Stalin said, and that's how they stayed. And for us, Stalin was pretty much like Hitler. Like we didn't like them both, you know. We didn't like that way of communism and socialism, and we didn't like the national socialism. So East German punk rockers started. When you're a punk rocker, you start questioning society, you start questioning the system in that you live, you start questioning things, and you start looking at the world because you care for the world, not because you don't care for the world. And I guess the East German government didn't like that, and they started a big war against punk, like they did start big wars against anything that was against them. So it was at that time pretty tough to be a punk rocker there. So,
well, I know back in the early '80s, I had the opportunity to pass through East Berlin on my way to West Berlin, and I was, I'll tell you, I was shit scared, man, because I saw the border guards with their AK-47s and with their big German Shepherds and their mirrors checking underneath the trains for anybody trying to sneak out of the east into the west. And you know, it was no socialist utopia. It was very fearful. I was very afraid, and I was very happy to get back into a democratic country, or at least what some people would consider a democratic country. I know there's probably a lot of people who question if there is real democracy even here in the West.
Yes.
But yeah, like just in case listeners haven't heard in previous shows about the name of the band, James, who brought you to my attention and your band to my attention, told me that the band was actually named by the East German secret police.
Oh yes, yeah, nameless actually. That's what Namenlos means, nameless, the nameless. We didn't have a name, and we didn't want to have a name because we knew with a name we would be more catchable for the Secret Service because of our songs and lyrics, what we had that were against the border, that were against the Secret Service, that were against all kinds of things in East Germany. So we didn't want to have a name, and thought we stay just nameless, you know, without a name. And then just started that people started to name us, and the Secret Service, when we got caught, you know, and we got to jail, you know, for our songs, you know, and they had to have a name for us, so we became nameless. Namenlos.
Namenlos, nameless. So, at your concerts, like how would the punk rockers in East Germany, how would they gather to hear bands and play? Like here, bands, there are venues and they advertise the bands are going to appear at a venue, and you go to a venue and you play, and your fans come out and they listen and they party and they have a good time. But it sounds to me like with the secret police trying to and the state trying to prevent any kind of questioning authority, you know, anyone who did not, you know, wasn't a square peg fitting into a square hole, they were going to, you know, smash you down. How would you gather to play your music for your fans?
Yeah, so it was hard to be a punk rocker in East Germany because the people already thought, you know, like when you went across the street in a uniform society and you looked like a punk rocker, you're something pretty, you know.
Well, you stand out in the crowd for sure.
Yeah, you
like,
stand out in the crowd, and you know they don't know what to do with you. You know, you're like an alien. That's how we walked around. And where did we have our concerts? You know, at a certain point, the peace movement, what was pretty much founded by the church, the Protestant or like the Luther-based church in Germany. They started to get an eye on us because they got in the same problems with being for peace in East Germany, you know. And so we got connected with the peace movement, like the punk rockers. What was already one group got connected with another group, the peace movement, and later on the ecological groups joined and the anarchist groups joined, what later on led to a big movement against the East German government, what actually was done in 1989 because of that. And the only way for a punk rock band to play in those days were maybe on little private ground somewhere, you know, in a house or whatever, in a garage or whatever. Or, and that's the most amazing thing maybe in punk rock history, we played in churches because the church gave us the place to play there.
So a church was like a
not
like
the
a sanctuary.
Catholic church, but the other one, the Protestant
The
church,
Protestant
or however
church.
you want to call it. It's that Lutheran or Protestant. I don't know how to name it here. It might be a little bit different than the Canadian styles here.
So they gave like sanctuary to the punk rock bands to perform. Yes. And for their fans to come out.
Yes, because the peace movement was based in the church, and there was Christians involved in the peace movement, and they saw these relations between the punk rockers and the peace movements. They got got harassed by the police for having their stickers just about peace, and we got harassed by the police because of having our stickers on or stuff like that. And also, we were further down the road than them because they just started out, but the punk rockers already were in serious trouble with the government. And there was lots of us already being in jail at that time. So
that was going to be my next question, if they arrested you and threw you into jail.
The peace movement saw that there's first they thought they're the only ones that are having problems, but then they saw there's a different group that has even worse problems than the peace movement. So they connected with us, and they got, I guess, they got a little bit strength from us too, you know, like because we already went through all these harassments, and we were the ones that were declaring already we are enemies of that state. There's no talk no more. We are enemies.
Mm-hmm.
We are true that day. Like the peace movements just started out there to think what happened here to us, you know, like.
It's kind of interesting, the parallel I'm thinking here between what you're telling me and the Sex Pistols in the UK, because when the Sex Pistols released Anarchy in the UK, they actually at one point were, by the British government, were actually considered as a possible threat to the monarchy. So here you had punks in a Western democratic nation being considered to be the same type of a threat as punks in a socialist, communist police state, a threat to the law and order and the establishment, I guess would be the way to put it.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And punks have always, I think, been a threat to the establishment. At least they should be. I mean, that's a bit of a bone of contention with me and punks today, is that you know, I'm very much into the old school punk scene, which to me was more about confronting stereotypes and questioning authority and the establishment and for change. And sometimes I wonder if that's still there, or if the punk rock bands today are more paying lip service to that and more interested in selling CDs and getting drunk and having a good time. Not to say that you can't do that. I don't know. James?
I'll second that.
Yeah? How about you? Some input here from James.
Just from my experience at the local scene, there's a huge lack of motivation. All the motivation seems to come from drinking or the party, basically.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be that much quality to the lyrics anymore.
Yeah, not to say that there isn't that here still, because there's always Punks Against Racism and Rock Against Racism, which tends to be an annual benefit concert here held in Winnipeg, usually at the West End Cultural Center, where you get a lot of ska bands and punk bands getting together, and other bands, you know, to rock against racism and raise awareness. And there were some bands here, the name of the band escapes me right now, but I do have their CD where a lot of their lyrics were overtly political, and the fellow actually was very much in your face. I remember there was a show at the West End Cultural Center where some skinheads showed up, and they were like neo-Nazi skinhead fans, and they were heckling the band because the band leader, the lead vocalist and leader of the band, was very much against racism, against neo-Nazis. And he actually jumped off stage to engage in fisticuffs with some of these guys, which I guess, you know, he wore his colors on his sleeve and was prepared to back them up. And he got himself into a lot of trouble at the West End for doing that. He was actually banned for a while. I'm sure listeners who were there would remember that and know of the band that I'm thinking of. The name of the band escapes me right now because they're not, unfortunately. I do not think I haven't heard nothing from this band in years. James, you know who I'm talking about offhand? Yeah, like bands like this, where do they go? I don't know. Anyways, I want to play another track right now. We got something queued up. Why don't you tell us, Mike, what we got queued up?
Okay, the next song is from another East German punk rock band from the old days. They call it L'Attentat, and I guess their song is Civil War, Bürgerkrieg.
Okay, and you're listening to the 25th Floor Juke Joint. I'm your host, Michael Litwin, with James Q, my co-worker from Grand Park High School, and Mike. And Mike doesn't want us to use his last name, so Mike, your initial?
MH, Mike.
MH. Mike H. Michael H. Okay, so we're back on the air here. I'm your host, Mike Litwin. This is the 25th Floor Juke Joint, and tonight is a special performance, a special show about punk rock, especially about punk rock in East Germany, specifically East Berlin. With me tonight is Michael H. from the East German punk rock band Namenlos, a band that was named by the East German secret police. Their name basically means nameless. And also with me tonight is my co-worker James Q. from Grand Park High School. And we're not using last names here just because Mike being from East Germany, things have changed, but some things don't change. And before we get into that and what kind of sacrifices Mike and his fellow East German punk rockers made to make music in East Germany, I'm just going to preface it by the comment that we were having a little conversation here, and I was thinking, for a lot of punk rock bands nowadays, and I know maybe I'm wrong, I don't think James would disagree with me though, but for a lot of punk rock bands, their biggest question is, where am I going to get money for beer, and am I going to get laid tonight? Whereas for Mike and his bandmates and the other punks in East Germany, they had a lot more pressing questions and pressing concerns, because to play their music, it came at a price, and I want Mike to talk about the price they paid as punk rockers in East Berlin. Mike.
So I guess lots of the early punk rock bands were questioning society and were very politically. So there was the East German punk rock scene who did the same thing, and we were very politically. All the bands had political songs, more than they had any love songs or whatever. And for us, that was to be a punk rocker. So therefore, the government felt very offended by it. But they felt even offended by punks walking across the street. Like, I remember times in the 1980s we got arrested every day, like on a daily basis, by the cops just by walking across the street. Got thrown for 24 hours in jail, get out, get in the next day again, like it could happen, and but therefore, like every punk rocker was always in danger to get criminalized by the government and by the police, and later on by the secret service. They tried to criminalize us, like that's the usual thing. But then the bands, again, with the political songs, they didn't have to criminalize us, because they just could take our lyrics and put them, like the law was, they were against the law, so they could throw us in jail, and that was happened to quite a few of the members of bands. But in our case, like the whole band got arrested in 1983 and got thrown in jail for at the minimum for the basket arrest of 1 year, and the other ones we became 1 year and 6 months. But got released a little bit earlier because we had lots of help from the outside world, like the Green Party was requesting our arrest, the church was requesting our arrest, these peace movement in West Germany was requesting our arrest and stuff like that.
And these were people that would actually go into court to advocate for you, right?
Yes, yeah. In our court case, there was a priest even there, and the Bishop of Berlin, who just that's why it became a good show, they got thrown out, like they were not supposed to be there, so and they didn't want to leave, so they had to get dragged out.
I was just thinking, like I know in the United States, I was thinking about the punk rock scene in Los Angeles, where the LAPD would come into venues and break up venues. They didn't like the punks, they didn't like the music, they didn't like the way they dressed, and so on some sort of pretense, they trashed the venue. I mean, this didn't just happen at the LAPD. I'm sure this happened in New York. I'm sure this happened in Canada, all over the UK. You know, the police would come in as the authorities, as the the power of the establishment. They would come into venues, and on whatever pretense, there's drugs, there's underage illicit sex, there's whatever. You know, they'd come in and they'd break it up and bust it up and beat up on the punks and arrest some of them. But, you know, those punks eventually would be released. And the censorship, they may not have liked the lyrics, but they couldn't stop the lyrics from being heard. But I'm thinking, correct me if I'm mistaken, but for you in East Berlin and East Germany, to be arrested by the secret police, like, you could disappear for some time, if not maybe forever. And if they decided your lyrics were somehow a threat to the state, that's it. There are no lyrics. The censorship was complete, and there was no changing it, like, until the change finally came.
Actually, we never went through the censorship, you know, like, because we were not an officially East German band. Like, there was the government-proven bands, you know, what could play everywhere they wanted, but we were not government-proven, so we had no rights to play at all, because you had to go through some kind of government approval in order to play officially in East Germany.
So
punk rock bands never did that.
Yeah, so like the punk rock bands here in Winnipeg today can play whatever they want. I mean, you can show up and be a band. If you got the money, you can go play at the Albert and say what you want, basically, and not have any fear that anyone's going to arrest you or prevent you from saying what you want. But
I've seen them perform naked.
Yeah, but you know, like for East Germany, for the punk rock bands, if you weren't on the official approved band, in theory, you couldn't perform.
Yes. So therefore, the church offered their space, like
for sanctuary.
Like we would play in churches. You wouldn't believe that, but punk rock concerts mainly would have been in churches in East Germany.
Wow,
till 1989.
It's hard to believe. I can't see.
It's hard to believe, you know. Like we are no Christians, you know. We are anti-Christ, you know. Like we don't believe in God or whatever, you know. Like and still. You know, it's not that I would question a Christian, you know. It's okay to be a Christian, you know, but I'm not, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And but in this big uprising in East Germany, all the groups gathered together, and there was Christians, and there was punk rockers, and there was other ones, and that was the strength of that.
It was a pluralistic movement uniting all sorts of diverse groups in the goal of changing society for the better, which really is what punk rock is really all about. And I'd like to talk a little bit. There's 10 minutes left in the show, and I know the Sex Files are coming in to do their show. So you know, heads up for the listeners that the Sex Files are coming in Phase 1 radio after them. So we got 10 minutes left. I want to play a bit more music, and then we'll close out with just what we were just talking about, with changing society and What is the message of punk, and what should punk rockers be thinking about when they play their music, and what their lyrics are about, and what it was about for Mike and the punk rockers in East Berlin? Okay, so like I said, there's almost 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes left in this show. I'm your host, Mike Litwin. You're listening to a special edition of the 25th Floor Juke Joint. This is the show just before the fund drive, just to give you guys a heads up. Next week, actually starting tomorrow, is CKUW's fund drive. And next week is the 25th Floor Juke Joint's Fund Drive show. So I encourage all CKUW listeners to pledge during Fund Drive. We need your support. This is a campus and community radio station, and I'm stressing the community part of here because I'm not a university student, and neither is Mike nor James, and it's all about community, especially the punk rock here. You know, it is all about community. So with the Fund Drive coming up, we need your support. So please pledge. And the fund drive starts tomorrow, and next Thursday is the 25th Floor's Fund Drive show. So I'm going to play a track. This is going out to James here. This is James's favorite song by Namenlos. This is Angst, and then we'll get back and close out with a few more words by Mike. Okay, so the show is just about done. I want to thank all the listeners, and thank my guests, Michael H. and James. Mike, you were about to say something?
Just about the band, the next band,
Oh, okay. Well, before we get to that, James, you wanted to pitch a plug here?
Oh, I'm just surrounded by awesome punk rock music, and I got my rhythm going. Either that or I have to pee or something, I'm not too sure. But I'm quite at home here. I'd really, I'm going to make a pledge before I go.
Okay.
I think I want one of those friends cards.
Okay, so we'll talk about what you need. I think for friends cards, it's a $30 pledge. When Fund Drive starts, there's going to be various pledge levels, and I'm not going to get into it because we're not at the Fund Drive yet. But Mike, before we close out, I want you just to talk a little bit about what punk rock meant for you then in East Germany, and what does it mean for you now, and what's your hope for punk rockers, now and in the future here in Winnipeg and everywhere?
Well, guys, everywhere. Like I would say, punk rock was pretty much for me to getting out that anarchist idea what I have, like you could show that with punk rock very good, and like still today there's lots of things, in the world that go wrong. We got war again going all over, and we got poorness and poverty coming up all over, like, and on the other side people getting so rich on all this, we got lots of stuff going on. We don't even have democracy yet anywhere in the world, like it's not happening, otherwise they would ask us what they want us to do, or what they want them to do, like the government is supposed to work for us, not against us, or not whatever, like, and therefore we don't have democracy. So the world is gonna move on, and if not punk rock, then it's a different movement what's gonna do it, like it's gonna move up, like one step after the other. And
well, I we're almost out of time here. I want to close out with one more track by another East German punk rock band, and I know the Sex Files need to come in and get going with their show. I'd like to again thank Michael H. for coming in today, and I'd also like to invite Michael H. to come back to talk more about the punk rock movement in East Germany and in Europe, and what it was like then, and his hopes for the punk rock movement here in like, he relocated to Manitoba, so I hope he gets involved in the punk rock movement here. And I'd like to thank James for coming down and bringing Mike and Namenlos to my attention. And so let's close out with one more track, and that's it. So
I want to thank everybody who is listening to this, and next track will be Schleimkeim from East Germany as well, from the 80s, and I guess that's it.
And I encourage everyone who's listening and they enjoy punk music and they enjoy campus and community radio music from CKUW to pledge to the station during Fund Drive next year and pledge to the 25th floor. So good night. This is
Mike. Good night.
Good night, James.
Good night, everyone.
Okay. Good night.
Seht doch, alle rein fort, alles in Rot, alles in Tod. Seht dort, deine Leute nicht mehr. Seht dort, mit Augen auf mehr. Seht dort, alle rein fort, seht dort, alle rein fort, seht dort, alle rein fort, seht dort, alle rein fort. Seht dort, alle rein fort, alles in Rot, alles in Tod. Seht dort, deine Leute nicht mehr. Seht dort, mit Augen auf mehr. Seht dort, alle rein fort, seht dort, alle rein fort. Schreien ein und schreien ein, schreien nein, 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 schreien ein und schreien ein, schreien nein, 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 nein. Seht doch, alle rein fort, alles in Rot, alles in Tod. Seht dort, deine Leute nicht mehr. Seht dort, mit der Nacht mehr. Seht dort, alle rein fort, seht dort, alle rein fort, seht dort, alle rein fort, seht dort, alle rein fort. Seht dort, alle rein fort, alles in Rot, alles in Tod. Seht dort, deine kannst du nicht mehr. Seht dort, mit der Nacht mehr. Seht dort.